Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my entitled outrageous neighbor destroyed a protected ancient house on my property to build a luxury pool and take over my land. I ended up fighting him in court. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. The first one starts like this. My family and I come from a small city tucked away in Eastern Europe. Now, don't let the term small fool you. It's one of those places that manages to surprise you with its rich history and an abundance of protected structures. But let me tell you, the real treasure lies in the house that I inherited from my father. No, he is not dead, he just signed it over to me. I am a single child, so I was going to get it anyway. My dad just wanted to get rid of it ASAP and go roaming around with my mom. So now it was up to me to take care of it, which meant ensuring it was fenced in and reporting any kind of vandalism that might take place because of some people who think it's hilarious to film themselves destroying something valuable. But then the pandemic hit and we were all stuck on continents that were not Europe. With the economic crisis and me worrying about my mom's deteriorating health after she got the virus, this piece of land was the last of my worries. I also did not think that anyone at that time would care enough or had enough money to seize it or try to damage it. Obviously, since I'm here on this subreddit and writing this story, someone did have enough money and care to encroach upon my land. Though that person did not have brains, so hang on and keep reading. So to give you a time frame, I did not visit this land for almost 3 years, October 2019 to May 2022. I know it's a long time, but as I said, a piece of land was not my biggest priority during those times, and it's not like I was totally unaware of what was happening to my property. And well, it seemed me and my dad's absence seemed to have sent the wrong message to our dear neighbor. You know the type, the nosy, self-appointed ruler of the neighborhood who believes he has free reign over everything and everyone. Let's call my neighbor Mr. Meddlesome. Now, Mr. Meddlesome, in his infinite wisdom, assumed that since my dad passed away, Mr. Meddlesome is not the sharpest tool in the shed it seems, he could waltz right into the property and do whatever he pleased. Spoiler alert, he was dead wrong. One fine day, a concerned friend of mine happened to pass by the old house. Lo and behold, who did he spot but Mr. Meddlesome poking around like he owned the place. You can imagine my friend's confusion, not to mention his outrage on my behalf. He swiftly snapped a picture as evidence and shared it with me, urging me to take immediate action. But again, it was not possible, and I was more concerned about getting my mom oxygen tanks than caring about some man playing peekaboo on a piece of land that could get him jailed if he played around too much. I just told my friend to keep me updated whenever he could and send me pictures of anything he finds suspicious or weird. But then my friend had to move for business reasons and I lost my last contact to that city. So sometime afterwards, when I finally got to visit my land, I was met with my worst nightmare. Well, not really, but it was gonna be a big trouble, I knew. So there it was, standing in all its ghastly glory, a brand new, pristine swimming pool, but this was not just any pool. Oh no, it was built on the ruins of the ancient protected guest house that had been a part of this land's history for generations. I stood there, already feeling a headache coming up. I knew what to do and I knew everything will eventually turn around in my favor, but legal cases are always a big pain in the bum. I was just baffled, honestly speaking. How could Mr. Meddlesome tear down a piece of history, a house protected by law, just to build the most basic of pools? Like, was this really worth a court case and hefty fines that would follow? Either way, Mr. Meddlesome was too powerful or too arrogant to be doing all of this. Spoiler alert number 2, he was the latter. But the problem did not end there, because obviously, how could it? As I made my way inside the house to see the extent of the damage, I saw the root of my headache. Mr. Meddlesome sitting on the plush antique couch, his family and their belongings scattered across my rooms. They had essentially invaded my family's home and claimed it as their own without an ounce of shame or fear. I decided to confront him, wanting to hear his side just for the sake of it. I already knew I was gonna be suing the hell out of him anyway. Me, what in the world do you think you're doing? Mr. Meddlesome, you finally decided to show up. I thought you had abandoned this place. Me, and what made you think that? Anyway, you're on my property. Get out with your family. Mr. Meddlesome, listen kid, me and my family are here on a vacation. If you're so in love with your property, maybe you shouldn't have left it abandoned for so long. Me, not only is it my land, but it's also protected by law. I can leave it abandoned for however long I want. around, it doesn't mean that you can come and encroach upon it. Mr. Meddlesome, oh come, you don't need to worry so much. Chill out and look around. I've made this old thing so much better and modern. Me, and by so much better do you mean that atrocious rectangle hole you dug? Because I don't think it deserved to be called a pool. Such a damn basic design that even a children's pool where kids piss look better in front of it. And modern? The whole beauty of this place lied in it being old and antique. God, you're really thick, aren't you? That comment seemed to have ruffled Mr. Meddlesome's feather because he finally decided to get up. Mr. Meddlesome, listen here you dimwit brat, you left this damn place without a person to vouch for your ownership. No, don't come here and complain about someone making good use of this place. Besides, that antique beauty was just an old shack. No one cared about it. Me, but it was not your old shack, was it? Mr. Meddlesome, who said it wasn't? I have documents and everything that I own this entire land and everything on it. Go and cry to your father who didn't sign it over to you before passing away. Oh wait, you can't! Wow, not only was this trespasser arrogant, he was an insensitive prick as well. Me, unfortunately for you, I very well can. But I won't, because my dad is too busy dancing and eating some nice food in Bali, and I don't want to disturb him for something and someone so small. Anyways, see you in court. Spend time with your family while you can. I could see the realization drawing on Mr. Meddlesome's face, and I was almost tempted to see him starting to beg me, but I was also tried from my trip and wanted to get all this over with as quickly as possible. As the legal proceedings commenced, I also reached out to heritage organizations and local authorities exposing Mr. Meddlesome's destruction of the protected guest house. It was going to take months, so I settled in my friend's house with his parents. They had connections with law firms in the area, so they too helped me with the legal battle. I knew from the start that I would win, but that didn't mean that I was not tried after every hearing. However, Mr. Meddlesome's panicked expression after his forgery of documents was exposed provided enough entertainment to pass some time. Eventually, Mr. Meddlesome was sentenced to prison for his crimes. Additionally, I was granted compensation for the damages to my property caused by Mr. Meddlesome's actions. I was awarded a settlement of $500,000, an amount that, though smaller due to the size of the destroyed building, still meant a lot to me. And it especially meant a lot because it was coming directly from Mr. Meddlesome's pockets, who was also going to see his beloved pool be demolished, not physically see, because he will be in jail, but the knowledge that a brat like me got his pool demolished would be aggravating him for so long, for such a long time. And yeah, ripe stars, it seems like some entitled people, especially when they get too much money, their entitlement reaches stages that are almost unbelievable. I mean, especially here in Europe, there are so many old protected buildings that you are not allowed to even modify, so even going further and destroying them is a really big crime in many places here. Or well, I shouldn't say here because I don't live in Europe anymore. Anyway, if you enjoyed the stories so far, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much. The next one is titled DUI Revenge. One random weeknight nearly 30 years ago, my uncle was driving home from church with 4 of his kids. My aunt had just given birth to their 6th child, who was only 10 days old, so therefore she stayed home that night with the 2 youngest. I'm told that my uncle saw the car speeding towards them and attempted to avoid collision by driving off the road and ending in the ditch. The driver was drunk, and even though they weren't on the road, they were still hit head-on. The accident killed 3 of my cousins, my uncle, and the 2 occupants who had been drinking in the other car. Only one of my cousins survived the accident, but she didn't walk away unscathed. She suffered severe head trauma she will never fully recover from and spent about a year of her life in a wheelchair. On top of that, she had to relearn how to write, walk and talk all over again. One night, a couple of drinks and 6 people dead. This is the primary view I have when I hear about drinking and driving. That's my lead into my revenge story and has no personal relation, the target of my revenge. So I'm sharing a little history so you know my stance on people who drive drunk. Anyway, if it wasn't clear, F drunk drivers. Fast forward now to last year. So I'm browsing Reddit and I see this story about a judge who was arrested for a DUI. The DA said he didn't have enough evidence to bring charges. A reporter showed him the police dashcam video, to which he stated during the interview if he had seen that video earlier, he would have pursued charges. And well, at that time he could still bring charges, but no charges were ever filed, let alone dismissed with prejudice, and the statute of limitations hadn't expired either. It was clear this is an abuse of power and government officials covering for their own. All of this was established in the Reddit post that brought it to my attention. And well, I did a little research of my own on this judge and found her Facebook page and a couple of posts linking to her website. The domain for her website had expired. 10 minutes later though, I was the new owner of that domain, which was also her full legal name. Since then, I've been using it to retell the whole story about her avoiding a DUI with a nice collection of all the news articles and videos I could find. Right down to the petition she filed to remove the arrest from her permanent record one day after the statute of limitations expired. I won't link the domain, but if you know of this person, you can find it pretty easily. I'm not even in the same state as this judge, but I don't give a damn. You drink and drive and then want to get re-elected in 2018? I'm gonna F with those chances as hard as I can. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I don't know about you, but I have absolutely zero empathy and no mercy for people who drive drunk and then hurt others. Let me know what you think about this story in the comments. Either way, the next one is another revenge story. So to begin this story didn't happen to me, but I was a huge point of contention between the two parties, my mother and my father. So about 3 years ago, my parents got divorced. When they got divorced, however, my mother didn't remove my father's name from her car's title. So whenever she got into any sort of accident or needed repairs, she's not a very good driver, my mother would always send half or more of the bills to my father, who would just tear them up while he would just pay them. Now, after about 3 years of this, my father had enough. She texted him a few days ago saying she needed new tires for her car, which in her mind he was gonna pay for. Now, my father is a very patient and kind man. He has paid for every fee for my brother and I for the past 3 years without my mother's help and rarely complained or asked for money from her. However, she would always ask for money from him and he would yield most of the time. He texted her saying he wouldn't pay for her personal expenses though. She then replied sending pictures of medical bills for myself and my brother from the past year, as well as a bill for a vacation that she took saying he needed to pay for those too, which he already paid his half of the medical bills and had nothing to do her vacation. He texted her saying that he wouldn't pay once again, and she was furious over this. She then began to go off saying how he couldn't provide better for me, that she would claim me on her taxes this year, she wasn't supposed to, that would be violating their custody agreement, and how he was terrible and selfish for keeping both her children to himself. I moved out of my mother's place, by the way, 3 weeks after they divorced. She was a slop and allowed grown men who I, a 14-year-old girl at the time, did not know into her home, and my brother didn't even want to live with her to begin with, so he didn't. She also stated that if he wanted his name off the title, he would also have to give her money for it. Now, keep in mind when they divorced, my dad paid to have her name removed off of his car's title by himself. Anyways, while she went off about how selfish and horrible he was, she let it slip that she has a down payment ready for a new car. A down payment which was more than the cost of him purchasing new tires for her current car. She even threatened to put his name on the title for her new car. So here is where the revenge comes in. My father called the state asking for a copy of the car's title to be mailed to him. Once he received it a few days later, it was go time. He called a towing business and had paid to get the car towed to his business lot, which was about a 30-minute drive from where we lived, an even longer walk from where my mother lived, and she had no other form of transport. Then he received several furious voicemails from my mother, who he now blocked, about how he stole her car and that she was calling the cops on him for theft. Now, about 2 hours later at my dad's business, a police patrol car shows up asking him about the car in his lot, saying he ran the plates and it was reported as stolen. My dad then denied this, showing the officer the car title with his name on it in addition to hers. The officer then apologized for bothering him. He was working at the time and left him alone. It's been about a day and a half and my mother has yet to get her car back and has had to call into work because she cannot get there, and my dad is speaking with his divorce lawyer about legal action to have her remove his name from the title and get a restraining order from my crazy mother for both himself as well as my brother and I. Life is good. And now an update to the story. Holy moly, I'm glad you guys liked this. Anyways, my father got the money from her to remove the title and she has her car back. Unfortunately, my mother's been harassing me at my 2 jobs and on social media, so we are in the process of getting a restraining order now. Update number 2, so we are going to court so my dad can get full custody of us and in turn, child support and compensation for all bills she hasn't paid that he has. I'm a little nervous, but I know that we got this in the bag. My dad says he wants to be sure that she will have to leave her $175K house. Love my dad, I will let you all know how this turns out. Final update to the story. To make a very long story short and to give you guys the final update you've been looking for, I am happy to announce that my dad got full custody of us and my mother now has to do back payments for child support and provide compensation for the years of unpaid bills. Also, let's just say her living arrangements have changed. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I am happy for the positive turnout for OP and his dad and the entire family. Sometimes really karma is all you need. Anyway, the next one is an Am I the A-hole story. So my parents are divorced. I, 16 female, lost my grandma from the pandemic in April. She left me her really cute and also delicate jewelry and all the jewelry she had gathered over the years, including some nice necklaces, bracelets and rings. Her engagement ring was there too, but my dad kept that safe for me anyway, because I think he was a little worried my mom would try to claim it. Anyway, when the stuff first made it into the house, my stepsister, 14 female, took an interest in everything I had and wanted to look and touch and for me to share, and I told her no. Because she has nothing to do with my dad's side of the family, it got more heated and my stepdad wanted me to share. My mom told me to let her use one thing occasionally, and eventually I had enough of trying to protect it, especially after I caught her searching my room for it, and I made the decision to leave it at my dad's, and then I decided to live there more than here. So basically I only see my mom now every other weekend, and my mom still thinks I should have left it there for sharing. I explained my decision to her and she told me that it's unfair for me not to share when I would with a bio sister. I told her I would if my grandma was their grandma, but she has nothing to do with my grandma and never did. She told me that's not fair when she's as much as my sister as a bio would be, and I said no, she is not when it comes to my dad and my paternal family, because she will never be part of their lives or get anything from them, and she is not entitled to it. I said she has her dad's family if she wants that kind of relationship. And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think that OP is the a-hole for not sharing with the sister or not? Either way, comment number 1 on Reddit said, not the a-hole. You handled that situation very well. I'm appalled that the adults in the house couldn't respect your decision. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, not even close on this one. Who demands someone else's sentimental inheritance? Your mom is clearly the biggest a-hole because she should be the adult voice of reason. Plus it's not her late mother's jewelry, so why is she involved? Your dad keeping the engagement ring safe is very telling of your mom's behavior. I'm glad you have your dad's place to get away to and some things to remember your grandma. The next one is titled Hotel Restrooms. A few years ago, a young lady who was wearing a very short skirt, low-cut top and looked worse for wear came into the front lobby shortly after midnight. She walked to the center of the carpeted room and proceeded to squat down and pull her panties aside to relieve herself. I am the front desk manager and was covering the audit due to a call-out. I said, "Hey, how's it going?" She said, "Fine," as she continued to urinate. She then asked how my night was going and I said, "Well, it just got really interesting." I asked if she needed a restroom and she said no, she would be alright where she was. Unfortunately, I had to contact the police and they arrived pretty quickly. She was extremely intoxicated and my only option apparently was to have her arrested for indecent exposure and disorderly conduct. I work for a Lambton Inn in Maryland and that arrest would mean that she would be placed on the sex offender registry in our state, because that is how the law works. I asked the officer if I could decline to press charges now, get her identification and gave her a return in a day or two to pay for the carpet cleaning, since she did not have dollars at the moment. He said I could do that because none of us wanted to destroy this woman's life because she peed on the carpet while clearly not realizing what she was doing. So that is the route we took. I photocopied her ID and gave her a note to hang on to, reminding her what she had done and that she needed to bring dollars to the hotel by a certain date, or unfortunately the charges would get filed. A few days later, I was on my normal shift when an extremely beautiful woman walked in, inquiring about how to handle the incident that occurred the other night. I explained that the young lady needed to come back and handle it as agreed upon. She very embarrassingly looked up at me and said, "I'm the young lady." I was blown away. I mean, holy! What a difference a shower and not running makeup made for her. She was very embarrassed as I recounted the story for her and actually started to tear up as she got dollars from her purse. She gave me $100 for the carpet cleaning and said, "Not that it matters, I know, but I brought this to prove to you that I'm not that kind of person and I'm really sorry." She proceeded to hand me a note from the local hospital with attached lab work that showed she had tested positive for rohypnol, roughies, and apparently her and two of her friends were dosed at a bar in town, and her one friend was SA while the other friend wound up in the drunk tank, and we all know where this young lady ended up. I immediately apologized for having had her come back with money and explained I would not be taking any money from her at all. I was so upset to find out that these 3 young women came to our town to have a good time, and it turned out so awful. I ended up giving her and her friends a discounted rate for a few days since they had to stay for the investigation into the SA, and anything they needed going forward, I did my best to redeem our town by giving them. Long story short, what I thought were just drunken shenanigans turned out to be someone's worst night. Calling the police was a godsend because they were able to identify that she had also been dosed. Anyway, that's my funny/sad story. Her and I still communicate till this day, and I see her when she comes into town. For anyone that is inquisitive, she has ever since and still does use the regular restroom when she visits. The next one is titled, "Am I really the douchebag for this?" So, I live in a small apartment complex. My nearest neighbors are a group of college students. Nothing wrong with that, I don't know them well, but we are always polite to each other. This problem has only arisen recently. For some reason, this group and some additional friends have decided to start hanging out in the hallway outside of my apartment. Literally just hanging out and talking. Things they could do in their own space. I work from home and this has been a nightmare in meetings. I can hear them in the hallway, as can my co-workers. They are college kids, so some of their discussion is not exactly office appropriate. Nothing wrong with that, I'm not a prude, it's just not workplace talk. Yesterday I got especially fed up after they were especially loud during an important meeting with my supervisor. I went into the hallway and just politely asked them if they could please hang out somewhere else. I explained my WFH situation and told them I could hear them. They took it poorly. They started telling me that they live here too and can hang out wherever they want in the building. One of the friends, not a resident, called me a bitch and told me to soundproof better. One of them implied that WFH is not a real job, which is rich considering that none of them work during summers. Their parents foot the bill. I feel like I was justified, but surprisingly, my mom agreed with the neighbors. She insists that they live there too and have a right to the hallway. So, am I the a-hole? I'm at my wit's end. And a user in the comments said, "Not the a-hole, they paid rent to the house, not the hallway." The hallway is a common location that is used by everyone in an apartment building, and people need to be courteous and not disturb others. I would contact the landlord if I were you. And yeah guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this story. Do you think that OP is the a-hole or not? And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.